Hey there, welcome back to Recovering Boldly with Quest Center. My name is Courtney. I am your host, and this is a space where we celebrate real stories of resilience, healing, and transformation. Each episode, we talk with inspiring guests who share their journeys navigating mental health challenges, addiction, chronic pain, and more, offering honest insight and celebrating the courage it takes to reclaim hope and live boldly as your authentic self. A bit of background on Quest Center. We are a nonprofit health center based in Portland, Oregon, with a mission to provide integrative healthcare services, community, and education to all people seeking a wellness focused approach to living and dying. Our programs in HIV services, substance use treatment, chronic pain management, mental health, acupuncture, and holistic medical care all recognize that each person has their own unique journey to healing. So, in addition to offerings like individual and group therapy, our programs take an integrative approach to wellness and include elements such as peer support, wellness movement, nutrition, and of course, at the heart of it all, community. And without further ado, I am very excited to welcome today's guest, Eloise, who has really seen all aspects of Quest Center, from being a client here to then becoming a staff member. And now Eloise has ventured on to owning her own gym that works very closely still with Quest Center. So we'll hear more from Eloise on her journey to where she is today. All right. Welcome, Eloise. Thank you for being here.
No, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
Do you mind introducing yourself and your relationship to Quest?
Sure. My name is Eloise Hoatlin. I am a graduate of the FSR program in 2018, and I am the current owner of Eastside Kettlebell Collective.
Awesome. And at Quest Center, our values are empowerment and respect, community, people first, and human rights for all. So I'm wondering if you'd be able to tell me about a way or a time that any of those values have shown up for you in your work.
I mean, absolutely in all places. My gym, we have curated specifically to be a welcoming space for all individuals, especially underrepresented individuals in
Mhm.
gym spaces. And so I feel like that comes across through in the same population that you serve here at Quest, people who are often underrepresented in society, who are having trouble like finding access to the things that they need. Um, and so we like to make sure that we keep our barriers really low to entry so everyone is welcome. We
Mhm.
have sliding scale pricing for everyone. We try to make all of our movements super accessible, even down to the language that we use. So trying to make sure that we're not, talking a jargon about
Right.
certain movements so that people don't feel like they're in over their head, even from like, like, I don't even know those words. How am I supposed to like do the things?
Hmm.
And treating everyone with dignity and respect and
Hmm.
making sure that there's never any judgment about who they are, where they come from, how they are inside our gym. So we just want to make sure that everyone feels super, super safe and welcome in our space.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that about Eastside Kettlebell.
Yeah, and usually people see right from the when they enter in the door, you can kind of you see it on their faces. They like look around, they're like, "Oh, okay, okay, I get it. I see it
Yeah,
now."
it's not just like any gym.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate it. Y'all have pride flags and pink
Hmm.
and lots of fun stuff
Yes,
right when you walk in.
yes.
Feels very
Lots
comfortable.
of signaling.
Yeah. It's appreciated. Yeah, so I'm curious a little bit about your personal journey and kind of what brought you to finding out about Quest and engaging in treatment here and what that was like for you.
Yeah, so I had been struggling with addiction for most of my adolescent and adult life. And I had tried I'd been kind of in and out of 12-step rooms and had gone through treatment another time before. This was probably all in my early 30s.
Hmm.
And it just wasn't quite sticking. So I would get a little bit of time and then something would happen and I'd go back out. I also have a son at the
Uh-huh.
time, much younger than he is now.
Yeah.
And it was becoming, I could feel the pressure building of of knowing that this there was going to be a breaking point of like he was getting older, things were getting more challenging with trying to manage my addiction. I'm saying manage in quotes.
Hmm.
Um, and raising him,
Hmm.
and so that was I could feel the pressure rising, and I knew it was just going to come to a head somehow, and it did. Unfortunately, it got to the point where uh my parents had to intervene, and no longer were going to let me take care of him
Hmm.
anymore, and that was it. It was like
Yeah, that's
you know,
definitely. Yeah.
it was so devastating. And so then I had to make that choice. Like, this is it. I'm at the crossroads at this point. And so I started looking at some treatment centers, and I was looking around town, and I chose Quest specifically because when I looked at the information online, I liked the holistic approach that it had. So I really liked the way that acupuncture was one of the big selling points for me. The treatment date seemed like it treated the whole person, not just the addiction. It was
Hmm.
going to be able to give me the skills that I was going to need to really make the changes, not just like, okay, go to a meeting every day. And that stuff, it can work great for some people. I needed a total reset.
Yeah.
And so that's why I chose Quest, and that's what got me started. And that was about 9 years ago at this point. Exactly. I think
Wow,
actually
amazing.
at this
Congrats.
point it was 9 years ago, probably almost to the day of when I started at
Wow.
Quest
Yeah,
in the SUD department.
nice.
Yeah.
And what sorts of groups were you involved in when you were here at Quest that you
So
enjoyed?
yeah, well, enjoy.
Yeah.
So there was I just really didn't know anything about recovery, even though
Mm.
I'd kind of already been to treatment before. I just was still sort of just felt like completely in the dark about like so I just really felt fresh. So I had my one-on-one counselor, I had my peer, we did process groups. I think women's groups for me is what I got the most out of,
Mhm.
just because that was really important to me. I had spent so much time, I feel like, stuck in my addiction because of the shame of being a mother and struggling with my addiction. I feel like that kept me sicker for a lot longer than I needed to be, because I was so embarrassed and ashamed of admitting that I was out of control, because you don't want to
Mhm.
be like, I'm out of control and I'm a mom and I'm supposed to take care of this life. And
Right.
they're so different. Like, your love for your child and your addiction are both playing equal roles. And I didn't know how to get out of it, but I also didn't
Hmm.
know how to say like, I had this, I'm a bad mom. And
Yeah.
that was a hard thing for me to get out of my head. And when I came to Quest, and I was in these women's groups, and I was seeing the other women around here who had been through a lot of, the women who are now sober, who had been through a lot of the stuff that I had been through, and even worse, some of the
Hmm.
the counselors here had been to prison. That's not part of my story.
Hmm.
And they're now successful people,
Right.
mothers with children who have relationships with their children. And so these were things that I could see somebody else who didn't have any sort of judgment about where I was and how I got there, and not being able to see my child, um, in that space at that time. And so I was able to finally start to realize that, like, it wasn't shameful to admit that you needed help. Like, it
Right.
was that was just it, that's what needed to get done, so I could be the mom that I wanted to be, and also the person that I wanted to be.
Yeah, I think that's so poignant because it can feel so intimidating to feel like I might lose something or I'm admitting this fault, but in the end, it's so much strength, takes so much strength to be able to say, "Hey, I need help,"
Mhm.
and to invite that in to do what's ultimately best for both you and your
Yeah.
child. So I applaud you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious, what were some of the most impactful aspects of your treatment or people or moments in treatment that kind of felt like turning points for you?
It was just really gave a lot of the skills that I didn't even know that I had deficits in.
Yeah.
I was just sort of like, surviving, and so just being able to learn, like that some of the stuff that I was doing were coping skills and I didn't even really realize it. Um, some of those coping skills were useful, some of them were not,
Yeah.
you know. So being able to identify like what is a good coping skill and what I already have. Um, already with me, and then what are the things that are no longer serving me, and then how can I either access other coping skills or increase the ones that I already have. Learning how to self-soothe without doing harmful things. Just like general life skills about, like there's a pretty strong, like policy about you have to be on time, you have like to meet these
Hmm.
requirements, and it's like how we just treat the people that we move through this earth and we interact with on kind of like a very like base level. It's like,
Right.
yeah, you say you're going to be somewhere, you show up there, you
Hmm.
show up on time. You have to have this done. The way that we interact with people in groups is going to be respectful. Like listening to other people's stories and hearing about what their life experiences were and what brought them there, and having empathy and compassion for them, and knowing that like we're all going through something,
Hmm.
whether it's, it always feels worse when it's you, right? 'Cause
Hmm.
we're the stars of our show. But then hearing what other people are going through and also have overcome and are trying to work through, and being able to use that support together to be able to work through the learning process of trying to get through it.
Yeah. Yeah. To back up a little bit, I'm curious where you're from and yeah, what your growing up experience was like a
Yeah.
little bit.
So I'm basically from Portland.
Nice.
I moved here when I was young, so I was 9 years old when I moved to Portland. So I
Mhm.
feel like I'm basically a native at this
Yeah.
point. And I grew up in Portland. So I grew up in Southwest Portland. I went to St. Mary's Academy, which is all girls Catholic school. So I had a pretty like normal upbringing, like
Hmm.
very like middle class. I grew up with my mom and my stepdad, who raised me from when I was 3, and then a younger brother, and they're both like professionals. My stepdad's a doctor. My mom is a PhD, and she was going through like her uh, like master's, or not master's, PhD program. She has a master's now.
Hmm.
So very academic. So that was kind of my upbringing was like, and I was not really academic.
Yeah.
As evidenced now by owning a gym. Not that you can't be an academic and own a gym,
Totally.
but I spent a lot of my childhood like alone,
Hmm.
like with my brother. Would be He was much younger than me, and kind of, they really wanted me to have a great education. They really wanted me to go to college and then, get into a profession. I'm not sure what.
Hmm.
And that just wasn't my path.
Hmm.
And I really struggled with
Yeah.
that. And I started drinking pretty young. I think I was, probably, I mean, I know I was in high school. I was probably as young as 13. And I
Hmm.
remember taking that first drink, and that it was just like that was it was in my
Yeah.
it was in me, and I felt like I never want to not feel this again, and that just sort of like snowballed from there. But I mean, I had like a pretty like nice normal, like, just
Hmm.
Southwest Portland upbringing.
Hmm. But yeah, it sounds like you were kind of resisting being in the box that you felt
Yeah.
like you were
Yeah.
in.
I always didn't feel like I quite fit in with the family. Like it didn't quite feel like I was ever, I don't know. And that was all me. It wasn't anything they did.
Yeah.
That was just something that like has always just been inside of me, that like I
Hmm.
just felt like I wasn't quite there in the mix. And that's just something that I've always had, that sense of feeling othered.
Hmm.
And I don't know why. I don't know
Hmm.
why that is. It's just something I've always felt.
Hmm. Do you feel like you found community now that,
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely. When I found community in my recovery community, I found a community in my running community, I found community in my gym community. So yeah, so
yeah,
it's really helped me find a space with a lot of people
right.
from, are all very similar but all very different at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, and that feeling of I never want to not feel this
Yeah.
again. What have you found to self-soothe or reduce anxiety in your life?
Well, I think working out.
Yeah.
So yeah, I never really was an active kid. Again, academics were definitely, the priority in the family. And so I did like a little bit. I did like Taekwondo for a while when I was in high school. I really liked that. But definitely drinking became a priority for me, especially when I got into college. And so everything else sort of like fell away after that. When I first started to get explore the journey of sobriety, I did start trying to, I had so much like extra energy. Like it's
Hmm.
just like all this like so much extra energy and time, I mean,
Yeah.
it takes a lot of time to be stuck in your addiction, either from using, obtaining, recovering, hiding, that takes so much energy. You don't even know that you're expending during your day just to manage your addiction. And so I didn't have that time, I had so much free time.
Right.
And so I started just like, I don't even know why. I think it was just something inside me. I started like going to boot camp classes. I started like a Couch to 5K running app. And I would do this stuff all early morning when my son was still asleep. So I'd just get up at like 4:30 in the morning, and I'd have to, this is the only time I could do it. And I would do that. And there was a meeting I used to go to that was about a mile and a half from my house. And so I used to get up and I would run to that meeting, and I would go to the meeting, and then I would run home and maybe do a couple laps on my
Uh-huh.
way home. And that was really helpful. And then it just sort of snowballed from there. I found a gym, which I own the space now, was a different gym at the time. And I started doing the workout there. And that gym was, sort of the set the precedent for how we have our gym, where it was a bunch of mostly women who worked out there, and they were really nice to me. And
Aw.
they didn't have to be like, there was no quid pro quo, or like there was no competition. It was like, wasn't, they didn't want anything for me. It was like, oh, you guys just want to be my friends.
Yeah. Oh, you just want to work out and
Weird. Why?
right.
And that's when I really started to understand like friendship for the first time. Because when you're in addiction, at least for me, it's like you have all these friends, but they're so superficial. They're only based on like, when can you get the bar? How messed up do you want to get? Like all
Hmm.
these things, like all these things that are like not real connection. Um, and you feel like it's real at the time, but it's not real at all. And then I started working out with them, and it was like a real connection. Like they were like,
Yeah.
you seem like you like are sad. Why are you sad? Or like you look like you seem like you need help, or whatever it was, and it was like it was not, didn't want anything back. It was like genuine care and friendship. And I was like, I'd never felt that
Hmm.
truly before. And that was also like really eye-opening. And having going back to that community and connection
Hmm.
was something that was really helpful to me. It was like, I don't have to seek out, soothing myself and my feelings, from use. I could like talk to somebody who actually cared and actually listened,
Right.
and like get their thoughts and opinions
Yeah.
on it. And like,
Yeah.
maybe the things I'm doing right now are, kind of bananas, or maybe I'm totally right, but like I had no idea how to even like, are these feelings real? Are they rational? Like, should I be feeling this way, or is this, and so like having someone to like kind of like help regulate,
Hmm.
like from like
Bounce off
yeah,
of.
yeah, and be
Yeah.
like, oh no, you should be mad about this, or like,
Yeah.
well, you could probably back off a little bit here. But it was nice to be able to finally have people who you could connect with and trust with
Right.
that.
Yeah, I'm sure it was a huge change going from like kind of maybe losing some of those previous
Yeah.
connections.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I had to lose all of them. I mean, you just do. You can't
Hmm.
go back.
Right. Yeah. I'm curious from treatment here at Quest to becoming a staff member, what
Yeah.
was that transition like?
So when I graduate, so one of the things I learned from my time at Quest is what had not worked for me the last few times I tried to get sober.
Hmm.
And what that was is I was getting sober, but nothing else in my life was changing. So I
Hmm.
would get sober and then I would go back to the same friends, same job, same life, all of those things. So the only thing that was different was I was trying to not drink.
Right.
And
What kind of work were you doing before?
I was doing kind of like gig work.
Uh-huh.
So nothing that I was really truly passionate about either.
Yeah.
So I was working at a concrete company. I worked for a local chocolate maker. And that was actually really interesting too. When I worked for the chocolate maker, it was a woman-owned business. And I would work at her farmers markets. And people knew that it was a woman-owned business. So they would ask me, like, are you the owner? And it used to really, like, every single time, like, somebody would ask me, it would just kind of like hit me in the chest. And I have to say, like, no, and I'm not her. I'm just the farmer's market girl.
Hmm.
And not that there's anything wrong with that. And I was still proud to work for that company. But it made me realize, like, I can't work these jobs anymore. Like I need to find something that I am super, super proud of and that is going to give me purpose. Like I knew that like my purpose was no longer just trying to like survive, which
Hmm.
is what I was doing before. I was just trying to like, I just need to make money so I could pay my bills, so I can keep drinking, so I can,
Right.
it's just like just caught up in that cycle. So that was one thing that I learned, and that I needed a purpose, and that I couldn't go back to just living that same life. I couldn't get sober and then just go back and think that I was going to be able to stay sober. So that's when I decided to go back to school. As I didn't do well in college, so I didn't finish college, and then I didn't even know how people would. I didn't know you could go back. I just didn't know anything. And so I didn't know how that you could get financial aid. I didn't know that, you could just, get financial aid and start going to school, and, you could, like still live. It just was all new to me. And um, Kim Accord, who works
Hmm.
here, she was at Quest, and she was like, oh yeah, you can do all this stuff. And she just like gave me all these resources and like just helped me sign up. And so I got set up with this program called Project Independence at PCC, which helps transition women. I hope it still exists. I don't know if it does, but at the time, what it would help women specifically transitioning from coming out of either prisons or DV or substance use or whatever kind of situations they were in, and it was like kind of a starter kit to going back to school. So they kind of gave you like, okay, here's
Amazing.
some study skills, here's some basic classes, here's this and that, and you get credit for it, and then they pop you into like going back into school. So it's just sort of like a soft landing to help
Hmm.
you learn how to go back to school, so make you more successful student.
Right.
So it was really built around success for women. So I started that, and then I went to school, and I ended up going into the CADC program to become a drug and alcohol counselor, because I really wanted to give back what had been given to me through the counseling at Quest.
Hmm.
And I did want to work at Quest. Like I
Yeah.
didn't know at the time if I could, but I was like, well, if I can't work here, I'll work at somewhere exactly like it. I don't know
Nice.
if that place even exists, but I just needed something. I needed a goal,
Right.
so that was my goal. So then I went back to school for a couple years to do that, and at the same time, I had gotten my training certificate to coach at that gym, and so I was doing both in tandem. So I was
Hmm.
coaching, doing personal training, and then going to school all at the same time.
Hmm. Wow. That's
Yeah,
a lot.
it was a lot. And then there was also COVID
Oh my
that
gosh.
happened at the
Just
tail
to add
the
that.
tail end of that. And then it was 2020, my last term, couple terms of school.
What a
It
whirlwind.
was, yeah, it was a lot, so much. And
Talk
then
about a life overhaul.
yeah, and at that time, my son was, I got my son back very quick. I think I only spent a summer away from my son,
Uh-huh.
before I was earned the trust to, start, taking care of him again. And I still saw him all that summer too. I just would have to
Yeah.
go up to I just couldn't spend nights with him, but I would see him every single day. Um, but my son was, I think, 11 when COVID started. So that was kind of an okay time, in
Mhm.
terms of like, he was able to kind of stay at home a little bit by himself. And so we were able to maintain pretty well during that time. But that's when I started interning at Quest. So I reached out to Kim again and I was like, hi, it's me. And then it turned out that I was asking right at the same time as practicum, and they're like, yeah, we can basically have you start like next week once you go through
Wow.
the process. And so then I was interning at Quest on Zoom. Yeah.
Yeah. So it started out during COVID, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then I think it was going back. So it started out on Zoom, and then pretty quickly it was sort of the hybrid, kind of like
Hmm.
where it was like I was coming into the office like one day a week, but most of it
Right.
was still like all over
Hybrid.
Zoom. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, was there anything that becoming a counselor from being a client that you kind of had more empathy for as a staff member, or kind of had challenges with making that transition, or
Um,
see differently?
Yeah, it's definitely different being on the other side. I have to say that I was an incredible client. That's the first thing I noticed. I was like, dang, I was like by the book. It's the only time I've ever been a good student was in treatment, because I was like, because once you start working on the other side, you just start to
Right.
see the challenges of working with people, especially in early addiction, and how challenging it can be, even if people really, really want it.
Hmm.
It's hard to help them start taking the steps. And there again, there's lots of rules and
Hmm.
following the rules. So definitely have more more empathy for being on the counseling side of it too. But I loved it. I
Hmm.
loved working with people. Like it was really I just really, and I still think about, a lot of the clients that I had too. And, I still, wonder how they are. And, that it's really impactful being on
Hmm.
the other side.
Yeah. Yeah, I love, I work mostly on communication, so I'm in
Okay.
the office a lot, but it's really nice to have moments where I get to interact with our
Mhm.
participants too. I feel like it really grounds you in the work that you're
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell me about owning the gym and how that opportunity came to you to own Eastside
Yeah.
Kettlebell Collective, and yeah,
Yeah.
what that's been like?
It was kind of a whirlwind. So I was working as a counselor here. I was still training at the other gym that closed, just kind of on the side. And when I was a counselor here, I was definitely wanting to enact more movement groups into Quest. You guys were in the process of moving buildings at that time,
Right.
and so like the bandwidth to do that just wasn't there. And so the gym that I had been coaching at suddenly closed, which was also a devastating loss for me, because I mentioned before that was like my whole world. That was my whole community. It was the biggest loss that I had gone through in since I'd become sober as
Hmm.
well. It was because it was my whole world. I was devastated. Um, and myself and another trainer, my business partner Felicia, we thought, well, we're not quite done training yet, and so we decided that like, okay, maybe we'll try training on, we'll do something on our own. um, and within like 3 weeks, we had opened Eastside. It
Wow.
was so wild, and that's like the very short story. But the landlord of the building, I reached out to him to see if we could just use the space as storage until we could, find a new space. And he said, I don't want you guys to leave. And I said, well, we can't afford the rent. Like we're brand new. Like,
Hmm.
and then he said, I don't care, like make me an offer and we'll figure it out. And we made him this crazy offer, and he took it,
Oh.
and he said, yeah, that's great. We'll do it. And we signed a lease, that kind of has a we incrementally,
Hmm.
as we grow, we're paying more of a market value for the gym. And the equipment was already there. We already had basically a population in place because it was the same
Right.
people.
Yeah.
And so all the signs were there that like this is like
This
that
is
we
it.
should yeah
Yeah.
we should go through with this. And so yeah, within like 3 weeks we were opening up Eastside Kettlebell Collective. And I talked to my business partner at the time, and I said, if we do this, the one thing that's going to be really important to me if I leave my job, as a
Hmm.
counselor at Quest, because that's a big deal, because I'd gone to
Hmm.
school for like years
Yeah.
to become a drug and alcohol counselor.
Right.
And then now it's just going to like basically like leave all that to start, a whole new business. So it was a big big deal. It's a huge choice to make, to like leave this job that had like a guaranteed paycheck,
Yes.
and health insurance. And I, obviously as a single parent, from the time when my son was like 4 years old. And so, I needed health insurance. I needed
Mm-hmm.
to be able to pay rent, pay bills. Um, and I said, it's going to be really important to me that I work somehow in the sober recovery community with the gym. And she was like, yeah, like, no,
Yeah.
no
Like
problem.
obviously.
Yeah. She's like,
Sure.
that's great. Whatever you need to do, I fully support you. And she has 100%. And so then I made it was really a heartbreaking decision to leave Quest,
Mm-hmm.
because at that time, that was another part of my community. It was like I
Right.
had kind of felt like I grew up in Quest because that was
Yeah.
where I got sober. And I had close relationships with a lot of the staff. I had clients that I really loved and
Mm-hmm.
that I didn't want to leave,
Mm-hmm.
because I felt, really invested in them. But I made that choice for me because, again, going back to my purpose, I had thought my purpose was being a drug and alcohol counselor. But I think what my purpose always was, in addition to that, was that movement, and all of that was just always such a huge part of my life, that being able to marry those two things together and then
Yeah.
have my own gym, be a small business owner, and then be able to do the work that I want to do in the recovery community
Mm-hmm.
for movement, it was all like kind of coming into place with that. So
Yeah.
that's why I made that decision. But I told you guys, I told you this
Mm-hmm.
before. I was like, you're not you're not done with me.
Right.
Um, because I was determined that I was like, if I couldn't get a movement group going at Quest when I was there, I was like, I'll
Mm-hmm.
do it. I'll do it
On
when
my
I
own.
leave. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that ended up being true about 6 months after we opened up Eastside Kettlebell Collective. I think that's when we started doing the functional movement group
Nice.
with EKC. Yeah.
Yeah. And can you tell me about the functional fitness group?
Yeah. So the functional fitness group meets every Tuesday at 1:30. So I just came from that. Today is Tuesday, so I came right over there to here. And so it serves the FSR, so the substance use program, the WISH program, so the pain management program, and then the two subsets of FSR, Link and
TRI.
TRI.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yeah. So we serve all of those people. And so they either come in on their own or with the van into the gym every week.
Mm-hmm.
And I plan my program pretty carefully for the group, knowing that people are coming in um, from all different paths from history. So it might be that they've never been in a gym at all ever. It might be that they haven't been into the gym in a very long time. It might be that they are coming in from an injury, or other health issues that might be impacting their movement.
Mm-hmm.
And so I try to make everything that I do inside this space made to be scalable on either end. So either we can take it down to like the very essence and basics of the movement, or if you want to like really like see if you want to max out,
Yeah.
you have the opportunity to do that too, or anywhere in between.
Mm-hmm.
So providing alternative movements, weights. I try to make it really collaborative with folks too. So if somebody says I can't do this for A, B, or C reasons. So sometimes people know something, like, oh, I usually do this instead. Great, let's do that. Or we collaborate and we work on something together. Like, like you tell me, they're the experts on their bodies, right? So
Mm-hmm.
they can let me know what's going to work or not. And so they can
Mm-hmm.
kind of give me a guideline, and then I can use my side of it to bring in, well, hey, have you ever tried this? And then get them moving. So my goal isn't for people to come out, of it like they don't need to be like, super
Ripped.
swole,
Yeah.
my goal is mostly just for people to have a good time.
Yeah.
It's like I had the one client leave today. It was his first time at class, and I said, how did it go? And he said, I was smiling and laughing the whole time, so I guess it was great. So great, like
Right.
that's
Not
it. That's a
always
great, yeah.
what you expect going to
Yeah,
the
yeah,
gym.
because I think people kind of, I mean, I know I can get this way too. You kind of like dread going into a workout because
Yes.
sometimes, oh, yeah, it's gonna feels hard. It feels like it's gonna take a long, all the things that we can kind of get into your head about. And
Right.
then ultimately, like I would hope that most people don't, that like that like once you start getting into it, it's like maybe it's not as fun as like watching TV and eating
Hmm.
potato chips, but like,
Yeah.
but you're still, you know, having a little bit of a good time. And like, I mean, physiologically, yes, like your brain chemistry is firing in a way that's going to give you some dopamine
Hmm.
and hopefully actually make you feel better, not just from like a, you know, a sense of you know, accomplishment or doing, but like, yeah, there's some brain chemistry stuff happening too.
Yeah, totally. I was not very versed in the gym and more recently started going to spin class, which
Hmm.
I love because it's just so upbeat and
Yeah.
fun. And that's the way I like to work out is
Yeah.
I gotta be having fun with
Exactly. And
it.
that's my goal for people too. Like, I don't really care if you love my gym or what I do, because that's what I love to do. Like, you know, I love to run, I love to lift, I love kettlebells.
Hmm.
Like, I love all those things. But I want to be able to just kind of help, like, you know, it's like you didn't know that you could do this thing. Like maybe yoga is your jam. Maybe it's spin
Hmm.
class because you like
Right.
that vibe. Maybe it's swimming because you just want to be alone.
Yeah.
You know, like whatever it is, you know, but like just find like whatever works for you. And then because
Hmm.
it's not going to last for a lifetime if you hate every single second of it.
Hmm.
So hopefully finding like, if it's just the one thing, if it's just walking for 10 minutes a day, if it, whatever it is, but like something that like you hope that you could do, you know, hopefully for the rest of your life,
Yeah.
because we need it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. How do you make your gym accessible? What are some things that you do to open it up to anyone who's
Yeah,
interested?
like I was saying before, we try and keep it as low barrier as possible. So like one thing when I think about like what stops people from coming to gyms is like we have all kinds of barriers in our lives.
Hmm.
There's time, there's childcare, there's money, there's
Hmm.
fear, there's all kinds of things. Some of those things are not in our control.
Hmm.
But the things that we can control are things like the finances. Like, you
Hmm.
know, we live in an area where there's lots of people who can afford to pay full price, which makes it easier for us to offer equity pricing for anyone who comes in. So we don't ask any questions. Just let us know what you can pay and we'll work with you for that. Some people also do trades, you know,
Hmm.
so it's like, I'm not, you know, look at these nails. I'm
I
not,
know. I'm
I'm not a
like,
handy
they're
girl.
amazing.
I can work out, but I'm not, if it's not duct tape, I'm not fixing stuff. So it's like, you know, it's like there is stuff that needs to be done
Totally.
that somebody can do if they want to come in and they want to do trade for us. That's great. That takes
Hmm.
such a load off of our plate as well. And just also trying to make it, I think safety is our number one thing. So just making sure that, you know, there's a whole world that is built for and by men specifically, and the
Hmm.
whole world is made to make them feel safe and secure and happy and comfortable, you know, at the detriment to like everyone else.
Right.
And so our number one goal is that for the people that doesn't apply to, that you can come into our space and know that you are going to be safe and taken care of. So it doesn't matter, um, you know, what clothes you're wearing, what you look like, what your perceived fitness level is, how much you think you do or don't know about
Hmm.
working out at the gym. Like a lot of people, I think, treat it like the thing, it's like, oh, I have to clean my house before my house cleaner comes. It's like
Right.
you don't need to have a certain level of anything
Yeah.
before you come into the gym. Just come in. Like our
Hmm.
role is to coach you. Our role is to teach you
Hmm.
about like all the things in here, and we're happy to do it. That's like literally our job is to do that. And we do this job because we love it. So we try to make sure that everyone feels safe, they feel seen, it's safe not just emotionally, but we are really focused on form. So making sure that like your movements are safe,
Hmm.
and but also from a trauma informed standpoint, where we really don't try to work in these binaries of like you're either doing it right or you're doing it wrong, because just like humans, like, you know, there's a million levels in between for movements, because every single person is
Hmm.
different, every single person comes into us with a different history. And so that one prescribed way to do a squat perfectly is not true. So like there are ways to do squats that are going to be safe, and so it doesn't
Hmm.
mean it has to be perfect, like the perfect squat.
Hmm.
It's like, well, what does your squat look like for you? How does that work? Do you have to get all the way down to the bottom of your squat because your knees hurt? Then don't do it.
Yeah.
Like, is that important to your daily? Like, what are our goals here first? Like, is your goal to have a perfect squat, or is your goal to be able to like bend down and pick up your kids?
Uh-huh.
Like it's trying to like meet people where they're at
Yes.
and make it accessible in a way like, does this make sense for you? Like, like, do you need to press, like a huge amount of weight up overhead? Or are you happy just like being able to do what you need to do and then walk out of here and feel like you don't need to punch a wall when you get home because
Right.
like, like that's all you want out of us. So we just try to let people set the standards for themselves and what
Mhm.
their reasons why are, and then we'll just help you like meet those in like the best way that we can.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, and I love too, you have like the clothing closet
Hmm.
as well.
Yeah.
So you offer accessible options for
Yeah.
people who might not have options that are appropriate for gym.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, a
yeah.
lot of people, I mean, it's like, especially right now, like things are really like in flux
Hmm.
with the economy. And the first things that are going to go are things like, like the bougie gym, or like, do you need
Yeah.
that extra sweatshirt? It's like when
Right.
you're trying to decide whether I'm going to like buy eggs or like pay my electricity. So like
Yes.
people coming in, like, we do either an exchange or just, take whatever you need, because a lot of folks are coming in, especially some folks from Quest from like
Hmm.
a situation where they've been unhoused.
Hmm.
And it doesn't feel good to work out in jeans and boots,
Yeah.
so we have a full clothing closet, for all sizes, for all gender expressions. And so people can come in and just like pick and choose what works for them, and hopefully be comfortable when they work out, either in my gym or just like, hopefully they're working out, if they want to outside of the gym as well
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Have you had experience working out in spaces that you felt really uncomfortable
Oh,
before?
yeah. I mean, I still work out at a big box gym.
Uh-huh.
Uh, for the equipment, there's like sometimes there's just things that that gym has that my gym doesn't have, or sometimes, it's like I don't want to go to work to work out.
Yeah, that's fair.
Even though I love my gym, love everything. It's like sometimes maybe I don't want to go to work to work out. But I don't feel comfortable going to that gym. I dress differently when I go to
Mm,
that gym. I act differently.
mhm.
I carry myself differently. And even now at my big age at 47, where it's just like I'm not interested in because you can just feel the energy. Like you can just feel the energy of like the looking from people, and you can, and it just is not comfortable. Like
Mhm.
I just don't like it. And that's one type of energy that's coming towards me.
Mhm.
The type of energy that's coming towards somebody else who is trans, or somebody who else is in a larger body, like, all those things. At the base of that is fear.
Mhm.
It's fear for your safety. Like, what does this mean? Am I going to be able to walk to the parking lot safely? Like, what are they thinking right now? And all
Right.
those things that you just don't need to deal with
No.
in your life. And especially, it's like all you're trying to do is just work out the same as
Right.
you.
Right.
It's like all I want to do is walk on a treadmill, or all I want to do is do some bicep curls or something. And you just don't need that extra energy. It weighs on you, and it's
Yeah.
so heavy. And they know they're doing it. They also know it's intentional, and it's intentional to keep you out of those spaces. The more unsafe and uncomfortable that you feel, the less likely you are to return. And then they can keep those spaces safe and secure for them and for them
Mhm.
only. So they're
Mhm.
purposeful in that intention. They don't want you there because
Mhm.
they want to keep that club all to themselves,
Yeah.
because that's what they want. So they're trying to push people out, and that it shouldn't be the way that it is.
Right.
It shouldn't be like that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen to them anywhere where they go in their lives.
Mhm.
It only happens to people who are marginalized, and we need to make that more equitable.
Yeah. Well, and I think making a space like yours that you've made, it's like maybe this space isn't for people who are,
Yeah.
making others uncomfortable at the
No,
gym.
and it doesn't really happen at our gym,
Yeah.
just because it's so obvious when you first walk in, like who the gym is for. You walk in, and like you said, it's got the pride flags. We've got
Hmm.
the giant pink wall. So right then, if there's anyone who feels like that
Yeah.
doesn't speak to them as a person,
Can check that at the door.
yeah, they can leave.
Yeah.
And like I said, there's a whole world made for them. The people that come to our gym, including the men that come to our gym, are all really great allies. They're all
Hmm.
really great people. So because all of our trainers are identify as women.
Hmm.
And that's not intentional, just happens to be that way, but we don't mind
Yeah.
it. And so we make sure so the men that come in, they have to be comfortable with that. So like being told what to do, as
Hmm.
I'm an expert,
Hmm.
and they have to be comfortable with the fact that I'm the expert in the situation,
Hmm.
and if you can't listen to me, then you're going to get injured. And so like right
Right.
now it's like, you're in that position where like
Power
you have to
difference.
listen to me
Yeah.
right now, because this is where I'm the expert. You can be the expert anywhere you want to be, but
Hmm.
not right here. You don't have my qualifications.
Hmm.
And so but again, that doesn't really happen with most of the folks that
Yeah.
come to our gym. It's like
Right.
the second they walk in, they're either like super relieved and like, okay, this is great, or they're like, or they come in because their partners come to the gym, so they're kind of vetted by
Uh-huh.
they're already kind of vetted by their partners, or they just kind of they understand their space in the gym. They understand that they are in our space now,
Hmm.
and we make that really clear. It's like, so like again, like right now you're in a space that is for women, you're in a space that's for queer folks, you're in a space that's for trans folks, you're in a space for folks in larger bodies right now, that you're in our space, and you'll respect that.
Hmm. Yeah. Thank you so much for making a space like
Yeah,
that. It's so important. And yeah, I know it's very appreciated. It was really amazing. I got to go visit one of your classes with
yeah,
Quest, and it was so much fun to see.
yeah,
Everyone was really enjoying themselves.
yeah, good.
Yeah.
I know that's my goal. I hope people have fun.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, is there anything that I didn't ask you about or anything else that you wanna talk about?
No, I mean, just come and check out the space and see if you like it. Now, or
Yeah.
if it doesn't work for you, you might know somebody in your life that would like really appreciate the gym. And just again, it's not really about, I know I talk a lot about the working out piece, but
Hmm.
like we really want to be a community that works out together. We do lots of other stuff that's not workout related. Like I do soapbox derby every year, so
Yes,
we
and
do,
you
yes.
rock it.
Yes. Yeah. So we try and do community building events. We try and do a lot of philanthropy around town. So we make sure that we are always giving back to the community in ways that we can. So it's really important to us that we support other local businesses, other local organizations. So
Mhm.
we'll have a lot of fundraisers. We have one that's coming up that's going to go to New Avenues for Youth,
Mhm.
and one for Go the Distance that's coming up soon, which is a sober running group that goes into treatment centers and takes folks out running.
Mhm.
So we try to give back as much as we can too. So we're not
Yeah.
just about like, come in and work out and rah rah. It's
Yeah.
like we want to be valued community members that like give back to our community as well.
Yeah, I feel like that is so serendipitous for working with Quest too,
Yeah.
because community is such a pillar of
Hmm.
what we do here. So it really works well.
Yeah.
Yeah. If someone were to want to join one of your classes, how would they do so?
They could just go to Eastside Kettlebell Collective.com. If you want to take a kettlebell class, we have a 30-minute intro to the hinge, which is the base movements for a kettlebell swing and
Hmm.
a lot of other movements. And that's a safety thing. So you can get a really good 30 minutes of like learning how the swing is, because it's tricky. Like these are skills that
Yeah.
they're tricky, and it's a really powerful movement, and really great for the body when done correctly. When done incorrectly, it can get a little
Well,
a
dicey.
little dicey. I see it done not well a lot, and so, but like I said, we're very, if we're very picky about something at our gym in terms of form, it's because we're worried about safety.
Right.
And so that's one of the things, is we want to make sure that like people are able to like not work out just until they get injured,
Yes.
but like stay uninjured and work out for like the rest of it. We want to make it as
Yeah.
sustainable as possible. It's like a lifetime thing, we
Hmm.
hope, and have a better life, especially as we age.
Yeah.
You want to be hopefully a person who is retired and then able to enjoy their retirement. Like maybe you like to, go out and garden. You want to, spend time with your grandkids. You want to spend time with your friends at playing bocce ball. I don't know, whatever, or just not have to be, housebound, not have to
Yes.
have your loved ones take care of you as much as not needed. My grandma was 95 when she passed, and she lived alone until she was 95, and she
Wow.
was making her bed. She was
Yeah.
getting dressing, all the things, everything that she needed to do on her own, she was doing up until like, and she is like my personal goals for like how I want to be. I've got still 50 years left, maybe.
Yeah.
It feels like a long time, and it's like you
Right.
want to make those like good years.
Yes, absolutely. Cool. Well, thank you so much
Yeah,
for being
yeah.
here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Thank you all so much for listening, and thank you to Eloise. Again, if you want to find out any more about Quest Center, visit www.quest-center.org. And if you would like to contribute to our work here, visit www.quest-center.org/contribute and learn more. Thank you so much. See you next time.